UNC beat Duke over the weekend. Now, we've talked about the ins and outs of it, right? We've talked about what Duke lacks. We talked about what UNC brought to the table. We talked about Armando Bacot showing up and playing like the Armando Bacot we've known in the past. We've talked about that. But we haven't talked about what impact it has on the ACC. If Armando Bacot plays like he did against Duke, the gap between them and everyone else in the ACC is not a small gap. It is a cavernous canyon, right? It is no bridge could span the width. If Armando Bacot plays like that, it is North Carolina as a tier, and then there is 50 feet and then somebody else.
Head and shoulders above the rest.
Yes, now that's a big if with Armando Bacot. There's still, even if he doesn't play like that in the biggest games, if it's just Harrison Ingram and R.J. Davis and some form of not superstar Armando Bacot, they're still first. Just the gap is not as wide. Here's Hubert Davis on Armando Bacot getting more involved in games.
I mean, we had a really nice time together, just talking about him and what is needed for him personally and for our team to be the best that he can be. I know people have told me that he has said that he taking a reserve role or this is this person's team and my role has changed, and I told him I've never told you that. For us to be the best team that we can be, we need you being a dude.
I kind of love that, right? Armando Bacot's going like, I'm sacrificing. My role is changing. Hubert Davis is looking at him like, why? Did I ask you to do that?
No, you're still one of the veteran players on this team. It's you and R.J. Davis.
Yeah, it's go get it. So if he goes and gets it, if that's the new Davis, if that's the new Bacot, that's going to be the number one team. Where does the ACC go from there? Next up, tied in the loss column, UVA and Duke. The fact that UVA is that high this year is a little concerning because I've watched them play quite a bit. They're not a great UVA team.
But they've kind of come out of nowhere.
It's completely fair some years, right? Tony Bennett, when he has the talent, when he has the team put together they won a national championship not that long ago. When he has everything put together the way he wants, it is not an insult to lose to UVA. It is not an insult for them to be near the top of the conference. This year, a little concerned. They're always going to be a good defensive team. I didn't think they had the offensive power. If they're the second best or third best team in the ACC, that says something about the ACC. Duke is in third. They just got manhandled by UNC and has a couple bad losses on top of that. Georgia Tech and Pitt stick out. Then there's NC State, Florida State, and Wake Forest tied in the loss column with 4 losses. They have all individually severely underperformed at times this year. I mean, what was it? Wake Forest lost like 4 of 6. NC State lost 3 straight to teams that I didn't think they definitely should have lost 3 straight to. I'm big on don't confuse an easy schedule with a good team, right? Don't confuse a team that ran through a bunch of scrubs and think that a great win-loss record matters. But what if an easy schedule gets you a top 4 seed in the ACC tournament and a lovely path through that tournament? Right? What if a down year in the if nobody is going to vault, if nobody is going to separate themselves other than UNC, you might be able to stumble and or back into the number 2 seed in the ACC tournament, right? Not playing until Thursday. Not playing anything real till Friday. Not playing UNC until at least the championship, if at all. Here's what the question becomes, right? Anytime you see parity, because it's cliche in sports to say you want parity. I want the NFL to be parity. I want every game to be good. You got to decide if it's parity or quality, right? Competitive doesn't always mean quality. They're not synonymous. I've seen some of the worst games played where both teams are terrible go to overtime, right? Competitive, parity, playing to the same level doesn't mean playing to a good level. We're going to have to decide whether 2 through 7 or 8 in the ACC are parity because they're all like solid or if they all stink, or if they're somewhere in the middle, because they're all pretty darn even, right? They all play each other to basically a stalemate, right? Team A beats Team B beats Team C beats Team A. Who's the best team there? All we know is that they're all 1-1, and they all have wins over a team that kind of, the triangle beat themselves in circles.
I have a bigger, broader question to ask you, Tim.
I love big, broad questions.
Regarding North Carolina, do they have a chance to win out?
They have a chance. After seeing the Georgia Tech game, I wouldn't. They're beatable, and they other teams. It's important to remember other teams in the ACC are still teams in the ACC. They can be down. They still have a couple guys that can go. I wouldn't expect them to run the table.
Virginia on the road, February 24th.
I mean, Virginia
will be hard.
Virginia, yes. I mean, if UNC plays the way they played against Duke, no, but that was at home. UVA, that's what I'm saying. UVA is right now second in the standings in the ACC. They don't scare me. That's a problem for the ACC, more so than it is a problem for UVA, right? UVA, you are what your record says you are. You are what the standings say you are. If they take care of business down the stretch, they'll be the number 2 seed in the ACC tournament. Otherworldly, right? Way to go. You won't tell me the second team in the ACC isn't great, but I'm looking at them going, I don't see greatness. You could say the whole ACC is kind of like Wake Forest right now, where I'm going, I'm watching you, and what I'm seeing doesn't add up to what my logical brain is telling me. I refuse to believe the ACC isn't going to turn out 4 or 5 legit teams. But I also refuse to say I've seen 4 or 5 teams play legit basketball. I'm looking at Duke. I'm looking at Florida State. I'm looking at UVA. I'm looking at NC State. I'm looking at all these teams that are near the top half or in the top half of the rankings. Even a team like Miami that we know has some guys that can go. Like, I'm looking at these squads and saying, somebody separate. Somebody separate. And if nobody does, then we have to decide whether they're not separating because they're all equally good or if they're not separating because they're all equally mediocre. Are they going to overtime against each other because they're equally mediocre or because they played a great competitive game? That's what we have to decide. And what North Carolina is doing is showing they're a level above, right? They aren't in this conversation. I think Kansas has done the same overtime in the Big 12. The Big 12, their non-conference schedule, go look at everyone in the Big 12's non-conference schedule. They don't play anybody. Then look at Kansas's non-conference schedule. They play somebody, right? They're a different beast. They're in their own category. This year, Kansas is more kind of as a program as a whole, but this year, UNC, they're a different beast. They're a different beast.